Hello and welcome to Notes on Film. My name is Josue Peralta. This is the inaugural episode of a new series we are starting, which is on movie score reviews. When I talk to people about movies or watch movie reviews, one of the last things that they mention, if they mention it at all, is the score of the film. I think that's a crime. There are a lot of movies that wouldn't have been what they are if it wasn't for the scores themselves. In this inaugural episode, I want to talk about Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights, scored by Anthony Willis. Anthony Willis, like Emerald, is from across the pond, and he's known for scoring all of her major motion pictures. That includes Promising Young Woman, Saltburn, for which he was BAFTA nominated, and also he scored How to Train Your Dragon, Homecoming, as a protege of John Powell. There was also Megan, which is a horror film, which did amazing, by the way, in the box office. Again, another underrated score that I hardly hear anybody, if at all, even talking about it. But all that said, let's just jump all the way to Wuthering Heights now, 2026. Wuthering Heights, like I mentioned, is a film by Emerald Fennell, or as we pronounce it here in the States, or Emerald Fennell, if you're across the pond, that everybody thought was going to be a retelling of the book by Emily Bronte. Now, when everybody hopped in the theaters and when we saw the film, we thought, or we should say we as the audience, saw that it was nothing what we expected it to be. By that I mean, it's more of a vibe of Wuthering Heights, although some of the key elements are there, than it is like more than it sticks to the fidelity of the actual film itself and the story, because it takes a lot of liberties that the book does not go into, that none of the other films of Wuthering Heights go into. So Emerald just kind of makes it her own. Now, a lot of people didn't like it because they got something that they weren't expecting. However, I understand what she was going for. Like I said, she was going for the vibes, and she was trying to say, what if they actually got to love each other, but ultimately couldn't be together? It was kind of like a, gosh, I wish it was like almost a wish fulfillment movie of what Emerald really wanted to happen in the book or with those characters. And she was using the I guess, the Wuthering Heights as a way to tell that story. When I walked out of the theater, I took some notes on what I thought the soundtrack and the score were like, because again, this is what this video is for, to review it. And I thought that overall, the first word I wrote down, because I took notes after walking out, was that it was apt. It was perfect for what everybody was going for. I thought. I thought it was haunting. You could sense the horror elements. There was a lot of suspense in the score. And overall, I think the word that just encapsulates it, which I kind of encircled a couple times, it was just full. I think it uses the right instruments at the right times, and it just makes it seem like it's from the age. It doesn't seem like it's trying to be a score like a modern score that's put into an old setting. It seemed like it was apt from the time, and it worked really well. Now, before I talk about the score, let me put on my Clark Kent glasses, just in case I'm too critical. I have the excuse that it wasn't me, it was the other guy. Hold up. Okay. Okay, glasses are on. Let's talk about it. I thought the Charli xcx score it felt like it was trying too hard. I did not feel like it was apt for the movie. I thought that it was discongruous, like it didn't really fit, like it pulled me out of it, whereas I wanted to stay in the movie. I wanted to stay in the era. I wanted to stay in the emotion, but hearing the modern voices and tones, it didn't quite fit. And I was like, why is this here? In my mind, I was like, well, did the studio just choose her? I mean, and again, she's a great artist, but just the score or the soundtrack itself, like, did they just choose her because they thought that she was going to sell to women well? And I mean, fair enough, right? Because she can sell to anybody. I mean, I listened to it, but I didn't think it worked well in the film at all. It felt like it was just plopped in there and kind of like, okay, here, everybody, you're gonna like it. Here you go. And that was really disappointing. I really expected more, especially from such a talented artist. Now, when I listened to the soundtrack by itself as a standalone product, that's when I really saw that some of the songs were actually really good. There were four that stood out to me that I call bangers, right? Some that stand out there, like, I would actually listen to this at some point in time, because I want to, because there's something worth listening to. The four that I thought from this album from Charli that I liked were the following: were "Dying for You," that one's really good. "Chains of Love," that one's good too. "Out of Myself," and "Seeing Things." That's 4 out of the 12 songs in her album that were bangers. I think a 1/3 hit rate for bangers is a huge success. So again, in terms of the album by itself, I thought it was great. However, when it came to being in the movie, I don't think it worked. I really don't. And it's disappointing. One song that I thought was the worst out of all of them is the lead, and that's "House." The whole, I mean, the movie opened with it, if I remember correctly. It had the whole hanging scene, and you're like, what movie am I in? And it's like, what is the sound? I don't like it. And that was the whole point of the song. Like, you're not supposed to like it. But I thought that the horror elements never paid off. So that's a definite 100% skip. I thought that was the only, like, I'd rather, like, if I never listened to it again, it would be too soon. And that's, like I said, I guess it sounds really mean, but honestly, that's how I felt about the soundtrack itself. So that's that. First and foremost, I'm going to break this up into two parts: how it played within the film, and then how it played as a standalone. So it's going to be two separate things. You can find the timestamps below if you want to jump to a specific portion and save yourself some time. However, let's jump right into within the movie. The first thing that I wrote down when I came out of the theater was that this movie was carried by this score. I was absolutely entranced by all the notes, by what I was hearing. I felt like the visuals were enhanced in a way that they couldn't have without Anthony's just imagination. I thought it was perfect. One of the things I wrote specifically was the highs and the lows of the emotions. Not that there was a low in the movie, because I thought it was an 8 out of 10. Actually, I would put it an 8 out of 10. Were carried by the film, specifically the ending. The ending hit so hard because of his score. Specifically, I think I wrote it down. It was I think it was called "Be With Me Always." That's the one that stuck out to me. That when the movie ended, you're like, ah, God, yep, it was satisfying. I loved it, and emotionally, you just felt complete. That's the word I would say. Emotionally, you just felt complete. Um, there were a lot of horror elements that I was not anticipating in this film, and he did a really good job with it. Obviously, Megan, he's done Megan, so that's a horror film. He has experience in it. I thought it was matured here in a different way, or to say, I mean, it's a completely different vibe. But I thought it really, really played well. Um, I think this is something really cool. That I wrote down, and this is something that somebody had told me one time, which is that, knowing what's at stake, I think the score knows what's at stake. The score understands the emotional journey of Heathcliff and Catherine. It understands their love. It understands their toxicity. It understands the horror that every day, that people are putting each other through. And it understands it very well, to the point where I was going to say this later, but I'll say it now, that this is the kind of score you would write Wuthering Heights to. If you were to sit down and say, hey, you know what? I want to write a book that deals with tragedy, love, and just love that can't manifest itself in any other way. This is what you would listen to. And I thought that that was perfect. Specifically, you could say that that the whole score just wrote tragedy across the screen. It was just tragic to see how everybody fell apart in the film. Whether it's for dying for each other, for cheating, for degrading yourself. Nelly too, being, what do you call it, having double, being two-faced. I guess I was going to say double, whatever, it's not the point. I thought that it was just so good in the way that he did it. I thought if you would give it an album name, I would say Lovesick the album or Obsession the album. That's what the words I would give it for this one. It captured both energies, but overall, I think tragic is the one word for this score that encapsulates the essence of it and of the film that is, again, underwritten and enveloped by the music. So I really enjoyed it in the film. I thought it was perfect. Now, as a standalone album, I thought it was a good listen. It has a lot of tracks to vibe to. And like I mentioned earlier, this is the kind of stuff you write Wuthering Heights to, and that's amazing. That's awesome. It's has its mellow points. It's pensive in others. And without the what do you call it? The visuals, obviously it's a different experience, which is why I'm putting it as a standalone thing, as a standalone as its own thing, because it feels different. It doesn't feel so tragic as a standalone album, but it does feel like it's intense. Well, we'll go with intense. It has a lot of intensity that really supports your writing or whatever mood you want to be in. Like, I mean, I guess a lovey mood would work here, um, but I really enjoyed it too. Now, let's talk about standouts in the album itself. Um, there were, let's see, how many standouts were there for me? Hold up. Let's see. We have uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, siete, ocho, nueve. There were 9 standouts for me. Let's go from top of the album to the bottom. So the first we have is CNH. I thought that one had me feeling like a longing, had me had in a longing feeling. I thought it was heartfelt and it felt touching. Those are the emotions it put me through. The next was Again and Again. I put heart wrenching on this one that it made me feel, and specifically, it made me. It feels like a memory. I don't know how somebody can write something like that in terms of music, but it felt like a memory. I thought that was so perfect. The third is Kitten and Clover. That one has points that feel like a heartbeat, which is so clever. I don't know how he did it. I don't care how he did it. I just love it. But it makes you feel and sense the longing. And one of the things I wrote in all caps was it was too short. It was way too short. Could have gone longer. I wanted to yearn a little more, I guess you could say. Um, the fourth I have is Dog in a Manger. That one is wary. It's scary. It has a lot of the horror elements I was talking about before. It's moody, it's scary, but it's so good. Like it is so good. It's not one I would put on repeat. Like, oh, I would listen to this forever. It's not one of those, but it is one that carried that part of the film. No questions asked. That one was excellent. The next one on the list is Kiss Me and Be Darned. I thought that one got to the depths of my soul. I don't know how it got there. I don't know why I'm saying the depths of my soul, but it just touched all the right chords for me to feel that. And also I felt a mix of, I wrote yearning, loss, and pain all in one, which is almost the epitome of this film. That one was really good. I liked it, but it wasn't better than the next one, which was, and this one I immediately, like, whenever I mean, I listened to this score maybe like 6 or 7 times because I'd been just so waiting for it. It took 3 weeks for it to come out after the release of the film. I just been sitting on it for so long. I listened to it, and when this one came on, I just could not help but notice, and it stood out every single time. And like I said, it's called I Will Wait for You. This was the best one of the whole album, in my opinion. This one felt whole. I I put yearning again, and also it felt painful, kind of like the pain of unrequited love. I specifically wrote it screams love in all caps, screams love because it does, but in parentheses it's unrequited. Like you want to love something, you would give it everything. You do give everything for it, and even then you can't quite get it, and the pain that brings about. It is such an excellent piece of art that, like I said, for me is the absolute standout. The final three are I Never Believed in You. That one that I feel like encapsulates the loss of it all, and whereas it peaks in I Will Wait for You, then the decrescendo, I don't know if that was the right word, I think it is the acceptance of that loss. It feels like, you know what, okay, it's whatever, I'm gonna have to carry this, you know, onward for the rest of my life. But it's something, but it's like a pain or a weight worth carrying, if that makes sense. That's what that one felt like. And then it ended with "Be With Me Always." That one felt like a bookend I wrote, and it was a literal bookend. Like that's where it ended before the suites started. And for those of you who don't know, the suites, I presume, are like when it's just a collection, or it's just extra written material that isn't particularly like chronologically in the film. Um, but that one, like I said, felt like a literal bookend and also like a figurative bookend where I could leave the theater sufficed, felt full, and I felt like I got the story and I'm going to hurt along with the characters and it's going to be okay. Right? Like it was almost a privilege to have, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like to have um hurt with them, to have yearned with them, and that was like a satisfying conclusion that like you can go now. I'm gonna be okay. That's what that felt like to me. And then lastly, I have here Thrust Cross Grange. It's the suite, which is a combination of everything that worked before, just kind of encapsulated all at once. It would have been cool if there was one named Wuthering Heights, like one for each estate. But alas, the movie's called Wuthering Heights. I guess it would have been too much. But alas, that one worked really well. So those are the individual standouts for me in this score. Now that the critic portion is part, I can take these off again. And to give it an overall score, like I said, it worked extremely well in the film, that I thought it wouldn't have worked as well as it did without it. And as a standalone album, I think it worked a little bit less because, again, you don't have the anchor of the film and the visuals with it. So you kind of have to put in your own life and the things that, matter to you and have to do with you, I guess, on your own. But for me, I would say that it scores a little lower on the standalone album part, even though it does have standouts and bangers, as I call them, um, like I mentioned before. So, an overall score out of 10, I would say 8, 9, and 10 are secluded for the Hall of Fame. This one, I would say, is just shy. I think Anthony is really coming into his own. He needs to become a household name here shortly. I would give this one probably a 7 out of 10. Something you can listen to and not be disappointed. Something you can listen to and enjoy, especially if you're writing something along the lines of Wuthering Heights or another type of novel to that effect. But that's my score of Wuthering Heights, scored by Anthony Willis. I'm really looking forward to anything and everything that he's going to be doing in the future. You should probably put him on your list as well. If you are curious or want to suggest, I should say, any other scores, please put them down in the comments. You can find me personally on Instagram at It's Attractive, and you can send any suggestions or any comments to me there as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all tomorrow when we begin our 10 days before the Oscars as we review the 5 Best Score nominees and the rest of the other 5, which are the Best Film nominees, which they just so happen to align like that. It doesn't always happen like that, but it does this year. Looking forward to it. See you all next time. Peace.